on a quiet island near Montreal, where a biotech company has been hired to maintain an exclusive golf course. Their latest fertilizer is designed to melt winter snow and keep the grass perfectly green all year, allowing wealthy members to enjoy golf in every season. At first, it looks like an incredible breakthrough, but the real reaction is happening underground. The fertilizer slowly spreads through the soil and contaminates the water supply that serves the entire island. The next morning, we're introduced to Dan, a security guard who's stocking up on emergency supplies at home. Dan is obsessed with a survival radio show that constantly warns listeners to prepare for unexpected disasters. Every day, he practices survival skills, convinced that one day they'll save his life. That night, he even tries starting a fire without using matches by removing gunpowder from a shotgun shell. The experiment creates a small explosion and singes one of his eyebrows, proving that while his methods are unusual, he's serious about being prepared. Meanwhile, Dan's daughter, Patricia, is working at the golf club. The biotech company CEO, Michel, proudly demonstrates the new fertilizer to a wealthy couple, explaining how it keeps the course in perfect condition. The visitors are impressed, completely unaware that the same fertilizer is poisoning the island beneath their feet. Elsewhere, an actor named Jacques drinks a glass of tap water before heading to a grocery store. The fruits and vegetables, they're also washed with tap water to keep them fresh. Not long afterward, Jacques begins feeling dizzy. At first, he ignores it, but once he gets home, he notices his teeth changing color, and strange noises begin coming from his stomach. Something is clearly very wrong. He searches for his wife, only to lose control moments later. Before long, both of them become infected. As their eyes slowly turn green, it's obvious that whatever caused this illness is spreading incredibly fast. Back at the golf club, Michel and the wealthy couple return to the main building, only to find it strangely empty. Then a terrified employee comes running toward them. He warns them that people are suddenly falling sick and tells them to get out while they still can. Seconds later, dozens of infected employees come charging across the golf course. The outbreak has officially begun. A nearby dog catches the woman's attention, and she tries to call it over. Instead, the frightened animal attacks her. Michel and her husband manage to pull the dog away, but by then it's already too late. The woman quickly begins showing signs of infection. The two men rush inside the clubhouse and lock the doors, unaware that the dog has slipped in with them. Moments later, it attacks the husband as well. Realizing he's infected, Michel locks him inside another room before the infection fully takes over. Outside, more and more infected people surround the building, pounding on the doors. Soon, the husband also turns and begins searching for Michel. Armed with nothing but a kitchen knife, Michel hides and waits for the right moment to escape. Elsewhere, Dan receives a call from an elderly woman complaining that her neighbors are violently fighting. As part of his security job, he drives over to investigate. The moment he rings the doorbell, the neighbors rush outside. They're already infected. Before Dan can react, the elderly woman also becomes infected and starts chasing him. Dan barely makes it back to his car. He desperately calls for help, but no one answers. As infected people begin flooding the streets, Dan suddenly thinks about Patricia. He immediately calls her. Unfortunately, she's already running for her life and never hears the phone ringing. Realizing something terrible is happening, Dan abandons his company vehicle, grabs a weapon, and sets out to find his daughter before it's too late. Around the same time, we're introduced to a young boy named Andre, who is preparing milk for his baby sister, Iani. He's about to use tap water, but their mother tells him to use bottled water instead. Interestingly, Andre never drinks tap water himself. He always prefers soda or other bottled drinks, a small habit that may end up saving his life. A little later, his mother suddenly becomes dizzy. Andre assumes she's simply exhausted from exercising, but within minutes, she becomes infected and starts chasing him through the house. Terrified, Andre runs outside, stumbling as he tries to escape. Just as she's about to reach him, Dan's car crashes into her, knocking her away and giving Andre a chance to survive. Andre rushes toward his mother, hoping to help her, but Dan stops him. He tells Andre this isn't the time to let emotions take over. Right now, survival has to come first. Dan advises him to stay inside. As soon as Dan leaves, more infected people begin gathering in the neighborhood. Andre can't bring himself to abandon his mother, even after seeing what she's become. He carefully drags her back inside the house, locks every door, and calls the police for help. Instead of an officer, he gets a recorded message. The entire island has been placed under quarantine. At the same time, the bridge connecting the island to the mainland is sealed off. Police block both directions, making sure no one can enter or escape. Looking back, this decision traps every survivor with the outbreak. Inside the house, Andre's infected mother suddenly heads toward Annie. He quickly pulls her away and locks her inside the bathroom. Moments later, she becomes strangely drawn to the running shower and quietly climbs into the bathtub. Meanwhile, Annie's crying attracts dozens of infected people outside the house. Thinking fast, Andre covers his sister with blankets and plastic to muffle her cries. After several tense minutes, the infected finally wander away. A little later, Andre's pet cat slips back into the house through the pet door. Unfortunately, an infected person sneaks in behind it. Just as the creature is about to grab Andre, he escapes outside. Oddly enough, the infected suddenly stops moving. When Andre returns with a golf club to defend himself, it has already disappeared. Elsewhere, Patricia hides inside a garage while infected people search the area. She finally manages to call Dan for help. Dan races to her location and finds the garage completely surrounded. Without wasting a second, he fights his way through several infected attackers, clearing a path just long enough to reach his daughter. Father and daughter are finally reunited. At that same moment, the military begins bombing infected zones across the island. The explosions knock out power throughout the town, making the situation even more chaotic. The following morning, Annie's babysitter arrives at the bridge, only to discover it has been destroyed. There is now no way onto or off the island. Back at the house, Andre records the infected through his window while a government press conference plays online. The defense minister announces that destroying the bridge was necessary and insists everything is under control. The statement sounds reassuring, but it doesn't match what's actually happening. Before Andre can keep recording, his phone battery dies. He checks on his mother and discovers something disturbing. Her body is now covered with a strange green, sticky substance. Moments later, she notices Annie and starts moving toward her. To distract her, Andre grabs her favorite vegetable and waves it around. It works. She follows him into the living room, where she accidentally crashes into a TV stand. The television falls on top of her, ending the attack. Heartbroken, Andre carries her back to the bathroom. Then he notices something impossible. Grass is beginning to grow from her wounds. That strange detail doesn't make any sense yet, but feels far too important to ignore. When Andre checks her phone, it's completely broken. Running out of options, he climbs a ladder and looks outside. The infected are still standing around his house, almost as if they're waiting for him to come out. Realizing he can't stay trapped forever, Andre places Annie in a baby carrier, grabs his golf club, and opens the front door. As expected, the infected rush toward the family's cat instead, giving Andre just enough time to escape. He sprints to a nearby grocery store. The infected chase him the entire way. Every entrance is locked. Just as they corner him, a door suddenly swings open. Dan pulls Andre inside. It turns out Dan has been hiding in the store since the previous day. He's even built a small survival camp, though he admits he still has no real escape plan. Every boat has already left the island, and swimming across the freezing water would almost certainly be suicide. While Andre checks on Annie, he notices someone locked inside a storage room. It's Patricia. She has been infected. Dan couldn't bring himself to leave his daughter behind, so he locked her inside, hoping someone might eventually discover a cure. Meanwhile, back at the golf club, Michel carefully disinfects the building before contacting his company. They tell him that specialists are on the way, but he must continue following company protocol no matter what happens. Outside, the infected dog appears again. Michel chases it away, and another surprising detail is revealed. He has a dark past involving the death of one of his former partners, making it even harder to trust his motives. Back at the store, Dan struggles to start a fire. Andre casually uses a lighter, solving the problem in seconds. As they eat, Dan turns on his favorite survival radio show. The host blames the outbreak on terrorists, but the explanation feels suspicious. Soon, the defense minister joins the broadcast. Instead of giving clear answers, he avoids every difficult question. The host begins wondering if the government is hiding the truth, and whether they're willing to sacrifice the people trapped on the island to stop the infection from spreading. Dan calls into the show, explaining that survivors are still alive and desperately need help. Rather than offering a rescue, the host asks for their exact location and situation. Frustrated by the conversation, Dan hangs up. Afterward, Dan and Andre start connecting the pieces. They carefully think back to every person who became infected. Eventually, Dan reaches a shocking conclusion. Everyone who turned had one thing in common. They had all been drinking tap water. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Ironically, Dan avoided infection simply because his survival obsession kept him from ever trusting tap water in the first place. With a new theory about the contaminated water, Dan, Andre, and Annie decide it's time to leave the grocery store. Dan also brings Patricia with him. Since she's infected, he places a protective cage over her head to stop her from biting anyone. Deep down, he still believes a cure might exist. As they travel, they notice several infected people covered in strange green plant growth. A young infected girl suddenly attacks Dan, but he only pushes her away. He simply can't bring himself to hurt a child. The group finally reaches Dan's car and escapes before the infected can surround them again. Meanwhile, the biotech company sends two heavily armed twin sisters to the golf club. Their mission isn't to rescue anyone. It's to erase every piece of evidence linking the outbreak to the company's fertilizer. Inside the clubhouse, Michel burns contracts and research files connected to the project. Before destroying everything, he secretly keeps one fertilizer sample for himself. Moments later, the twins arrive carrying special metal spheres. Inside those spheres is an experimental treatment capable of reversing the infection within 24 hours. Michel reaches for one, but the twins immediately stop him. Instead, they force him to swallow a fertilizer sample, knock him unconscious, and drag him away. During the struggle, one treatment sphere falls onto the floor unnoticed. Not knowing any of this, Dan's group heads toward the island water treatment plant, hoping to confirm their theory. They leave Annie safely inside the car to keep her crying from attracting infected people, while Patricia comes with them. Inside the facility, they discover an infected worker hiding inside a massive water tank. Grass is growing all over its body, making it obvious the infection has evolved. Patricia suddenly rushes toward the creature. Dan dives into the water after her. The infected attacks, but something unexpected happens. When Dan pushes Patricia in front of it, the creature immediately backs away. Watching from above, Andre realizes something important. The infected don't attack each other. That discovery could become a huge advantage. Unfortunately, the creature hears Andre and starts chasing him instead. He barely escapes back outside, where even more infected begin surrounding the building. Dan manages to pull Patricia from the water, although she loses one of her arms during the struggle. Using Patricia as a shield, the group safely reaches the car because the infected refuse to attack one of their own. While driving away, Dan hears a phone ringing. It turns out Patricia's phone is still in her pocket. Using her fingerprint to unlock it, he notices grass growing from her wounds despite the freezing weather. That's when everything finally clicks. The outbreak wasn't caused by terrorists. It all started with the golf club's Fertilizer experiment. Now they know exactly where they need to go. When they arrive at the golf club, they notice a strange cloud spreading across the grounds. Andre immediately starts recording everything on his phone as evidence. The front entrance is locked, so Dan climbs on the roof, sneaks inside, and opens the door for the others. Patricia is secured inside a storage room, while Andre settles Annie in a safe place. As they search the building, they discover the infected dog still alive, its body now completely covered with grass. Then Dan suddenly becomes dizzy. At the same time, Annie mysteriously disappears. As Andre searches for her, Dan wanders into a dark hallway and discovers several bombs connected to a timer. Someone is planning to destroy the entire building. Although he's becoming weaker by the minute, Dan reaches the control room and uses Patricia's detached hand to disable the countdown. But then, his eyes slowly begin turning green. Whatever has been happening inside his body is finally catching up to him. Outside, the twins notice the golf club is still standing, so they head inside to investigate. Along the way, they find Annie alone in the kitchen and secretly force her to swallow some fertilizer before continuing. Meanwhile, Andre searches the building and discovers Michelle locked inside a room after becoming infected. Moments later, he finally finds Annie. Just as they're about to leave, the twins block their path. One twin grabs Annie, while the other tries to force fertilizer into Andre's mouth. But before they can finish, Annie suddenly becomes infected and bites one of the twins. During the struggle, one of the treatment spheres falls to the floor and cracks open. A strange gas quickly fills the room. At the same time, Dan attacks the second twin. Within minutes, both Annie and Dan slowly begin returning to normal. Looking back, this proves the treatment really works. Dan briefly loses control and chases Andre into the kitchen. Just as he's about to attack, he recognizes Annie and stops himself. Realizing they've both been infected, the twins make a final decision and shoot each other rather than turn. After everything settles down, Andre uses Dan's old phone to unlock Patricia's phone and record a video explaining the entire outbreak. He reveals that the fertilizer contaminated the island's water supply and asks anyone watching to send help before uploading the video online. Then he reunites Dan with Patricia. The video quickly reaches the news, forcing the government to send soldiers to the island. At first, it looks like a rescue mission, but Andre soon realizes the truth. The soldiers aren't saving survivors. They're eliminating everyone left behind to erase the outbreak. He watches another survivor get shot without warning and immediately hides with Annie. Inside the golf club, Dan has fully recovered. Moments later, soldiers storm the building and kill both Dan and Patricia before setting the area on fire. Soon after, the defense minister appears on television, announcing that the outbreak has been completely contained and the public is no longer in danger. As he speaks, he's drinking from a mug bearing the biotech company's logo. It's a small detail, but it strongly suggests the government and company were working together all along. Meanwhile, Andre and Annie continue searching for a way off the island. They eventually discover a small boat left behind by Annie's babysitter and use it to escape. Before leaving, Andre throws Patricia's severed arm into the river, believing it's no longer useful. A nearby fish bites it and instantly becomes infected. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching.